I frozen?
No, I can still hear you. We're
I'm
live,
frozen.
but Shauna's frozen.
I'm frozen. Oh, there, I'm back.
She's back.
Hi.
She's back. What a Wednesday, right? We've been sprinting this morning. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late, everyone. My name is Jordan. I'm the host of Changing the Game. Changing the Game was created to share leadership insights and inspiration from female professionals who are out there making a difference in their industry. Today, I'm joined by Shauna Griffiths. Shauna is the founder of SLG Impact and Leadership Athlete. She's a coach and a consultant, and she's also a former two-sport Division I athlete and avid cyclist. Welcome, Shauna.
Thank you. So amazing of you to have me on the show. And I love in your intro the way you describe it, but it's also, I want to say, like, it's all because of you and your inspiration that you create and, your innovation that has created this show and this platform and this positive impact you're making. So thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. I'm honored to be on the show today.
Shauna, thank you so much. I'm so honored to have you on the show. Just for everyone listening, a little bit of context. Shauna was actually one of my first professional contacts and mentors when I started my career after law school with Open Doors. Audie Kanalik there introduced us back in 2018. So it's like full circle now. We recently reconnected. So this is awesome. I'm so pumped about this. Did I lose you?
Wednesday.
Are you there, Shauna? Can you hear me?
I am here. Yeah, it looked like you froze for a second. I probably look like I froze, but
shoot. Hopefully, we don't have too many technical difficulties. But I don't know if you missed it. I just explained our background a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, but I just want to have you kick it off right away, Shauna.
Yeah.
You could just explain to us, what were you like growing up? Give us a little background. How did you become such a strong athlete?
Yeah, how was I growing up? Pretty much a little version of myself now. I really do think that there are these natural energies we have as little people that we just a lot of times just continue to evolve. So I've always been very active, always outdoors. I somehow convinced my mom to let me sleep in the tent outside of her apartment as a little kid. I mean, I was always just out there doing kind of beating to my own drum, I would say. And I've always brought a lot of fire and, dare I say, intensity to the things that I try to tackle. Always been a bit of a dream chaser and catcher, I would say. I found my way to playing basketball. One of my mom's friends literally rolled a basketball out onto a park court one time. I was 10 years old and I had never even touched a ball before. My parents weren't into sports. And I was just taken with it. I think one of the things I was taken with most was that he cared about me as a human. He cared about me as an athlete. He was helping me to learn fundamentals. And I was really fortunate that I came up in his AAU program. Little John he's a first draft class leadership athlete. He has a t-shirt like this too. I see him every once in a while. So, I think I just really fell in love with being a part of a team and having something that was bigger than just myself that I was, air quotes, playing for. And so I poured that into my high school, my AAU career, my high school career. I went on to play basketball at the University of Michigan, go blue. And I used my 5th year of eligibility to run cross country, which always sounds weird to people. You played basketball to cross country, but I did. I ran cross country and got my MBA. So I went to Eastern Michigan for grad school. So that was the how and the why. And just, again, like using that intensity and using that desire to catch dreams.
I love that. And actually, I feel like it makes sense to me that you went and ran cross country afterwards because you do so much running in basketball. I play volleyball. It's like you don't run. It's like a quick sprint and then you're done. So.
My former teammates may not agree with you. We would show up for preseason practice and I was always excited when we had to do the mile run and I would be done before them. And they would, they like the sprints and stuff. But yeah, I think, again, it just was like I was so wanted to stay a part of something. That team. And I think that's also why I went on in my career to work at first with Nike in the WNBA, and then I went on to work in the NBA. And I think I was still wanting to be a part of, like hold on to that team mentality. I thought of my leaders, my business leaders as coaches. And so for a long time, I was able to sort of maintain that. At least that's how it felt to me at the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then you mentioned your transition to Nike and WNBA. I would just love to know if you could talk us through your transition then from being a two-sport athlete, having that team environment, transitioning into the professional world. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, unlike what it is today, I will say this was a while ago, folks. And I was not prepared, I will tell you. There wasn't the same emphasis, at least in my world at that time, in preparation for career and internships and all that kind of thing. So when I was in college, I was like, I studied and I played basketball. I wasn't doing a lot of the things to prepare myself. And I actually ended up working at a running shoe store in Ann Arbor, and I befriended the local Nike rep, and he and I got to know each other. And that's how I found out about the opportunity with Nike and their women's basketball program. And I was already obsessed with Nike. So I was like, oh, great. I'll just turn my sort of fixation on trying to go work for them. And that combination of Nike and women's basketball it felt perfect to me. So that's kind of why I did it. And you asked me the other day, like, did I know I wanted to do marketing? I did not. I wanted to work for Nike. I wanted to work in basketball. I wanted to continue those things. And it was through opportunity and being able to be a part of a team and evolve myself and start to apply different skill sets that I, more than anything, like created my path forward. It didn't have like a name for me that, oh, I want to be in marketing. It was more that I knew the environment that I wanted and the type of setting and team that I wanted, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I think that point you made about befriending the Nike rep, that is it's such it's anecdotal evidence that like you don't know where your next opportunity will come from. And that opens so many doors for you. And going to Nike, not really knowing you wanted to be in marketing, when did that shift happen? Like, how did that start to play out, that career path for you from there?
It was that experience, actually, because what I did was Nike had a rep in each of the WNBA markets. So this was, again, it was the early years of the WNBA. And my first year I was with the Detroit Shock, that doesn't exist anymore. My second year I was with the Seattle Storm, who was led by an incredible leader, Karen Bryant. But my Nike leaders were phenomenal women. There was diversity in the leadership group that I was following. It was, and that's what I was fortunate enough to have my first experience working under. So, that they had us out in the field, basically being Nike's like eyes and ears, like marketing extension in the markets for the athletes and for the Nike athletes and Nike in general. So I loved it. I got to go like show product and give away tchotchkes and work with the local kids. But it was marketing, communications, community work. And so I got to see what it was like to actually work at a team as well. Yeah. And so that's actually where I did 2 WNBA seasons with Nike and that. And then I found my way then I was like, oh gosh, I want to work for a team. So I didn't know anyone going into this. I didn't have friends and family in sports and entertainment. I was one of those people that just found one person and then got as many contacts as I could, as much experience as I could. And then I would start almost quite literally like banging down doors to get to the next thing. So when I wanted to work in the NBA, I had a friend who lived in New York City, and I would repeatedly go visit her. And every time I did, I would go to the NBA office and meet one more person, the league office. And so I just kept applying for things. And one day literally out of the blue, I got a call from the NBA. And it was Kim Colbert, who I still give gratitude to, who gave me my first shot. And that was back when the NBBL started, which is now called the G League. So it was the minor league for the NBA. And they were starting the season. And she was like, I've got one spot open in Asheville, North Carolina. She said, do you know where that is? And I was like, absolutely not, but I'll be there. And that was a Thursday, and I moved and was working on Monday. So, I tell this story because if someone's in the audience and they're like, gosh, I don't know anybody, but I really want to get there, or I just graduated, or I'm about to graduate, or I graduated and I have no idea what I want to do. It's okay. You can and will figure it out. And there's something that I believe in, and I was sharing this with you the other day, Jordan, is that we have the ability to reinvent ourselves as many times as we want to and need to along our journey of becoming who we are meant to be. And I believe that entirely. So you may start out like you went to law school. Are you a lawyer right now? Nope. And
No.
that's great. You may decide later that you want to be or not, but I think like giving ourselves a bit of grace in that and figuring it out along the way. And if you want to do something, just because at this current moment you don't know what exactly the next step looks like or how to get there or who to help you, that's okay. It doesn't mean that the answer is no. It just is, get creative about how you get there.
Yeah, the path is never linear. I'll just log off. You take the show over with that amazing advice.
Sorry.
No, that was amazing. No, seriously, Shauna, that was amazing. And it's so true. Like your path is never linear. Like go to law school, try it, see if I did. It wasn't for me. There's so many opportunities out there, but you'll never know what your path looks like unless you just try it, unless you put yourself out there. And I think your story is so amazing that you just kept showing up. There's so much noise out there right now that's like, oh, it's all about who you know. It's so hard. The market's saturated. You have to know somebody. And it's like, be resourceful. There's so many different ways right now to get your foot in the door than just passing out a resume. Get on TikTok, be creative. There's just so many ways. So I just think your story is proof of that.
Yeah, thank you. And I will say also be authentic. I can't stress it enough. And it is kind of a red thread through everything I do and talk about is authenticity. Just yesterday, I was on LinkedIn. I don't know, it was kind of up in the background. Somebody messaged me. I didn't know him. He just wanted to connect with me. Of course, his name was Dalton Kelly. And I had no idea who this person was. But he reached out to me and he was just authentic. He just asked me a question, something about my career. And within a couple messages, I was like, oh, I know this. Actually introduced him to Ashlyn at the Post. And I was like, you should know Ashlyn. Okay, here, I'm gifting him the experience of taking the GCI index assessment and going through that with me, which is a tool that I use in my coaching to help you understand your natural energies so that you can then apply it and figure out some of those things we were talking about earlier. And it happened like this. But if he had never reached out to me, I didn't know he had a need. He just reached out to me and he was authentic, and it gave me the opportunity to engage. So just remember that if, people in the audience who are listening to it, you can still go old school and just reach out to someone and be like, hey, ask them a question, show some interest. There's just a lot of ways to do it. You don't have to know everything about exactly what you want to do, and you don't have to know everybody.
Yeah. People generally want to be helpful. I do believe that. I mean, I think our connection here is a testament to that. Just the fact that, you knew Audie and he introduced us, and now we're able to have this conversation, and it might play out years from now, but yeah, you'll never know what could happen if you don't send that message, if you don't just ask.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. So amazing. I'd love if you could also share some of your experience. So you have executive level experience as a chief growth officer, like so cool. Can you share your journey to how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you said earlier about things aren't linear. I was working at a sports team. I worked for the Nets, left right before Barclays Center opened. And people are like, why? That was so weird, that key moment. Well, I wanted to diversify and add more to my toolbox, so to say. I had been in professional basketball working for 13 years. And so I say that because, again, to the audience, like, I truly believe in continuing to add to your toolbox, because my goal was I want to bring as much value as I can to the table. So I went to the agency side and I was like, well, I can very quickly in an agency get exposed to different perspectives, different types of brands. It was still within the sports entertainment vertical. And I stayed there for a long time. And part of the reason why is because I went in doing brand partnerships, which is kind of an extension of marketing. But then there was more opportunities and I just said yes, or I'd raise my hand to create an opportunity. So I ended up creating that division and then creating the marketing communications division and then the practice around sponsorship sales. And so as I continue to do those things, it wasn't like I was land grabbing and trying to like just sort of almost like power hungry and people hungry. It was like I wanted to be able to continue to expand my horizons and to add value to the company and the people. So I was doing those things, and leadership has been a calling card of mine, thankfully. I think, again, I attribute it to coming up as an athlete. And so I was able to become part of the leadership team there at the agency. So I stayed there for a very long time. I think something like 9.5 years. And then pandemic happened and I lost my job immediately, like overnight. Which, I was more senior in my career. I'd been at the, that very senior level at the time. I think I had a title of something like SVP and managing director, and it was gone. Very abrupt. It was like this huge like aha moment of like, well, what am I going to do now? And kind of, I got sick of crying after 3 days. I was like, I have to do something about this because there's like thousands and millions of other people like me in this exact moment. But it really was that digging deep and that athlete mindset of what am I going to do to create something for myself? What am I going to do to show initiative in that? So that's when I started SLG Impact. And I was like, well, what are my sweet spots? So you think like as a volleyball player, what is your sweet spot in the sport? I kind of thought that way. I've always done that relationship between sport and career. And at the time it was marketing and it was brand partnership. So I started SLG doing marketing and branding. So I had some really great clients. I was grateful to work on the Detroit Pistons social justice campaign, Power Humanity, that's still live today. I did that with my friend Elisa Padilla, who's amazing. I worked with Lego on a brand partnership. So I did some things that felt great, but they were also great experience. Then I got an opportunity to consult with a creative agency. So my story, if you're listening to this, is like, I got in the practice of saying yes, creating opportunity and being in it for the experience. So when I got an opportunity to work for this creative agency, I started as a 6-month contract position, turned into a full-time role. I started as chief client officer, and over like, I don't know, maybe around a year, I transitioned it to chief growth officer. So again, it's sometimes just getting in and starting and figuring it out as you go. I actually have a refrigerator magnet that says sometimes you have to jump and build your wings on the way down. So, because sometimes like we think, oh, I'm going to say yes to this role. I'm going to go take this job and it's going to be exactly what's on this piece of paper. But you get in there and you got to figure it out. How are you going to make that job authentically yours? What's the opportunity? Is while you're in that seat, are you actually adding more value in a different way? And does it allow you to pivot the role, or does that make sense? So I just like things aren't linear, I don't think things are static.
Totally. And I love that you took control. Like you put yourself in the driver's seat for your career. Like you couldn't control what happened to you during COVID. Thousands of people couldn't control, and you gave yourself, 3 days to cry about it, which is, a good rule of thumb, like take a moment, grieve over it. But then it's like, okay, I have to take control again and put myself back in the driver's seat. So I think that was so cool that you were able to do that. And then make connections between your transferable skills from athletics and what you've done in the past to say, how can I apply this to something that's going to serve me moving forward? So I think that is such a cool mentality that you have there. If you could give one piece of advice to any women who have executive level goals, what would that be?
I'd say one is be authentic. That I'll always say that. Be authentic and do what you can to get out of your own way. And I phrase it that way because a lot of times we bring things up. Well, that person didn't let me, or I got laid off, or I'll tell you what, folks, I got laid off, I got a job. And then you know what happened? When the tech downturn happened, I got laid off again. But again, it's like those things, I cried for 3 days because if I would have stopped, because if I would have continued, I'm getting in my own way. Totally. If I needed to let go of the experience, the bad experience of getting laid off, the bad experience of some of the people, the people who were in leadership seats that I had experience with, I had to let go of those, because if not, I'm looking in my rearview mirror instead of, like, again, if we go to sports analogies, getting in the game.
Yep.
I'm like putting myself on the bench, on the sidelines, instead of getting in the game and moving forward. And so that's what I mean when I say I'm getting in my own way, if I choose to do those things. So much of this, the mindset, the leadership athlete mindset that I've come up with and talk about is, how am I going to show up every day and take steps forward? What thoughts am I going to have? What choices am I going to make? And what actions am I going to take to back that up, to get myself where I want to go?
Yeah, I think that's such good advice for anyone listening. You know, here at Shift Group, I work with a lot of athletes, veterans who are maybe not necessarily who have been laid off, but going into a new industry for the first time, or a new first job. And the job market can be tough, but I think that's such a great story to say, hey, you need to get out of your own way. You need to stay resilient through the process. There's so many things that you won't be able to control along the way. But the things that you can control, your effort, your attitude, your drive, like those will take you places. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. It really is your effort, your attitude, your drive, because the job market is hard. When you're interviewing, you get a lot of no's. Here's the thing. Think about, what can you learn, what can you grow, and how can you grow, and how can you evolve every single time, so you show up differently to the next interview. It's the same thing again. Like, you go to practice one day, you're missing your hits, you can't hit the jump shot, whatever the thing is. We'll do the practice that day, come back the next day, and up your game. But if we apply those same principles and the ways of being in our lives and in our work that we did, and we found success in sports, then a lot of goodness can happen. That, to your point, a lot of times there isn't a lot we control, but a lot of times there is a lot that we can control, and we have to really decide, pick and choose, in order to help ourselves keep going forward.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much good in there. I would love to, if you could speak a little bit about so your leadership athlete platform, SLG Impact. Obviously, we know a little bit about what gave you the idea to start this now. Walk us through that journey.
Yeah. So, again, when I started SLG Impact, it was like a bit out of survival. It was a bit of, let me figure this out. It was not easy. It's still not easy. Every day, my husband reminds me, Shauna, nobody knows what they're doing. We're all making it up. So I'm like, right, okay, that helps. So then again, I shared that I was laid off again when the tech downturn happened. And I just started picking up some consulting clients. I had started doing some coaching at some point in there, because again, leadership was always part of my calling card. It's what fuels me. And at the end of the day, what I like to do is to create authentic experiences that help to fuel people's and businesses, organizations, pursuit of optimal performance. That doesn't mean perfection, but so the ways I do that now are by consulting. A lot of times that's in growth consulting. I'm a part of a management consulting firm called Change Force, so I do some of that with them. I have other clients that I do some marketing or consulting work for, and I do my coaching. So, the leadership athlete platform that I started was because, frankly, I was really disappointed with a lot that I was seeing out there from people who were in leadership seats, what I was experiencing with certain people. And I thought, especially during that time during the pandemic, when there were a lot of marginal people in marginalized communities being persecuted, and there was a lot of question about what people in leadership seats were doing. So it was important to me, especially as a white woman, to do more, it wasn't enough to just check on my friends who were part of those communities. So I wanted to do more. And that's when I started my podcast, This with Shauna Griffiths, which is all about elevating voices of diverse, authentic leaders. And now we're also tackling breaking down hot topics. So it was a part of that. And then again, the leadership athlete was an extension of that, because what I wanted to do was say, hey, you know what? Let's see the leaders out there that represent diversity, that maybe they don't represent diversity, but they're actually leading in a way that shows that they care about their own evolution, the evolution of the people and the businesses that are in their care. And that's a lot different than a lot of what I was seeing in people in seats of leadership. So a lot of this is, how can I be a part of change for the better? To your point earlier, you said like to help things serve people better.
Yeah.
And how do I use my voice and any influence that I do have, and hopefully I'm growing, to help things be just better. Because if you don't, what I say is like, I am part of the problem if I'm not part of the solution. And I believe it in my bones.
Yeah. It's so true. And I love that you are elevating other voices on your podcast, not only diverse voices, but people that are trying to contribute to the larger conversation and make things better and I've talked about it on this podcast too, just wanting to open the door for women in sales, in whatever professional industry it is. We might walk in the room and be the only in the room, but it's up to us to keep the door open to allow others to feel comfortable coming into the same room. So I think that's so cool that you have that mission with your podcast. And I loved one thing that you touched on earlier too, is you said your friend said, no one really knows what they're doing. They just fake it. And I think that's so cool, because when you're going into uncharted territories, it can feel really scary. It can be like, whoa, who am I to do that? A little bit of that imposter syndrome that can kick in those situations. So I think that's cool that your friend encouraged you that way too, to go out into those uncharted territories and put yourself out there. Was there any other way that you were able to handle, the noise or any imposter syndrome that inevitably sometimes comes up when you're doing something scary and out of your comfort zone?
Yes. So you are right, is inevitable. Every single person wakes up, and if and feels that fear, imposter syndrome, whatever it is, when you're trying to do something new, a lot of people say, if you don't feel that way, probably something's wrong. So I think I look at it as not a cue to stop, but a cue to get curious, a cue to continue, and again, figure out where I'm in my own way on something. And it's a lot about a perspective shift. So if I'm looking at something and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out about blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, if I try it, well, then what happens? And then what happens? It's what story are we telling ourselves? So I will say I have a coach. So folks, if you are listening, I believe strongly, yes, I am a coach, but I have a coach, Leslie Harris, who is incredible. I've worked with him for over 8 years, and that has been huge for me. And it's that commitment. So as athletes, as performers, what people have is they continue to get even better and better coaches.
Yeah.
Your top athlete, Simone Biles, has a coach. She has a mindset coach. She has all the different coaches. So, yeah, exactly. So I really believe that having Leslie Harris as part of my world as I've continued has allowed me to continue, because it allows me to push past those voices of self-doubt, or he actually calls it saboteur, which is such a great word, I think. But like these little voices that come in and it's like that tell you might not be good enough, or you don't know how to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, have I tried it? I don't know. Like I can't make a free throw unless I've tried it either, but I got to get there, and I got to get to the line, and I got to practice, and I got to put my reps in. And that's a lot of what I talk about in the Leadership Athlete platform as well, is that, as leaders, we have to put in those reps. We have to, it's like the first time you did this show, you're probably like, oh my gosh. Right. Exactly. When I started my podcast, like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing
the whole time. Yeah,
exactly. But you do it over time, and you're like, oh, this isn't a big deal anymore. Because here's the thing, you prove yourself to yourself. Yeah. Every time you step to the line, every time you step within the playing field as an athlete, and you do the same thing in business. The first pitch you do, it's going to be scary. It's probably going to suck. But you know what? You practice. You rehearse before you give the real one. And then you learn from that experience. And then you go to the next one and you're like, oh, you're that much better. Just imagine then how many reps you put in over time, you get better. That's how you get better. So I think when those thoughts come up for me, I think about all of those things. And I practice it so much now that I can do it a lot more quickly. So and that's, I think, what we're looking to do is those things don't stop coming to mind. It's what you want to do is shorten the duration of sitting in that space. So you can see it. I often tell, I tell clients a lot of times, like, if you see that voice come in or that doubt, like, stick it on a cloud. Imagine a cloud, stick it on a cloud and push the cloud away. And
It's
like,
a meditation tactic.
yeah. I mean, it's like we use visualization as athletes to, you practice shooting free throws more, in your brain than I actually watched a thing the other day that there was an Olympian they showed him practicing like before he was going to get on the like pommel horse thing. Anyway, but it's a perfect example that, again, we can translate that from seeing what works in athletics to you can do the same thing. Rehearse things in your brain, practice things in your brain, practice them literally, and it will get better. Push it away, push the cloud away, so that, again, it's shortening that duration that you hear that voice. It's like, what are you doing? You can't do this.
Yes. And a couple things came to mind when you said that. First is the phrase where it's like somebody else is out there doing exactly what you want to do with less knowledge, but more confidence or something. Like, I don't know the exact phrase, but it's like,
I'm with you.
Yes. It's like that person, maybe they don't have more knowledge, more training than you. They just were able to push that voice out of the way and go for it. And so it's about that, crowding it out, putting it on that cloud and having it float away.
And to build on that, here's the thing. You are focused and committed to helping, former veterans and athletes. Well, I guess former veterans is not the right way to say it, but here's the thing that happens. A lot of time, women have a tendency to have that voice of doubt. And you want to know what? Again, there's a lot of men that don't necessarily do that. And there's a lot of times I'm like, well, that guy's out there doing it. Well, here's the thing. I'm holding myself back. I can do it too. I want to be out there. So there are things in societal norms that continue to have some of the gender dynamics, especially in sales, right? Yes. But here's the thing, ladies listening to this, if you want to be in this space, figure it out. Mm-hmm. Get yourself there. Like, if you start to hear that voice, ask yourself, is this a story I'm telling myself? What narrative do I actually want? Because again, I mentioned my coach, Leslie Harris, who says, if it's your story, then you can change the narrative. So, again, like, as women, let's really think about what we can do to shift that and not necessarily believe something that isn't actually lining up with truth.
That was so powerful. Like, if it's your story, you can change the narrative. Like, period.
Yeah.
That is so, so true. And JR, you mentioned sales. JR, actually, our founder, sent me an article once, and it was, and I can't remember the exact percentages, so take this with a grain of salt, but a large percentage of women don't apply for roles because they don't feel that they meet all the qualifications. When men read that, they're like, oh, who cares? I'm going to apply anyway. I'm going to put myself out there, even if I don't make every single qualification. And that split second of doubt could be holding you back from a big step in your career or something that could push you forward. And maybe it's not that exact opportunity, but maybe it's the next one. And I just think that's so cool. Like, start changing the narrative within and just go out there and do it.
It's absolutely.
Yeah. I know we're way over right now. I
didn't even notice. You do such a great job with this. Time got away.
We're vibing. This is great. You've had so much good information and knowledge and nuggets of wisdom to share. I do want to ask a couple more questions. I guess if everyone's hanging tight on the stream, please stay with us. Otherwise, we post the full stream anyway afterwards. But I want to get a little bit into some of your career achievements, or just not even career achievements, but I just want to know what you're the most proud of in your career.
It's funny. I don't think it would be like a moment or like a thing I did, because yes, there were several of them I'm grateful for. My team and I erected a wall at one point in Manhattan that had Jay-Z and Prokhorov on, who were the owners of the Nets at the time.
Yeah.
And it, like, made global news. I mean, it was really cool. I mean, there are moments, I think, that like it's more around my ability to, what I'm most proud of is my resiliency and my adaptiveness over the course of time, but especially during these last 5-ish years that have been really, really difficult. And I think, to your point earlier, showing up every day, I am most proud that I've been able to show up every day authentically, get creative, create solutions, work on myself, and not get in my own way to the point where it will like stunt me. Now, again, I say that because, do I have bad days? Absolutely. Have I had setbacks? I have had my setbacks have had setbacks. My ability to keep evolving over time and to find a way to win. And again, it's like, this is what we've done. This is what we're meant to do. This is what I was born for, type thing. This is what I learned to do as an athlete. Like, is you fall out, you get, hurt, all those things. That's a moment, but what you do in that moment is what matters most. And through that, I've been able to increase the amount I've been able to contribute and positively impact both organizations and people. And that's what I'm most proud of. Listen, it's not like I'm at any pausing point. I'm I'm doing the doggy paddle under the water type thing. So it's something I'm not going to stop doing, and I'm going to keep, and hopefully it's what will continue to help me propel myself. But again, it's like, it just is all about aligning with my values, I think.
Yes. It usually never is one moment. It's a combination of many moments and having to overcome failures and pushing through. So true. Last question for you, Shauna. I would love to know if you could give one piece of advice to any women out there listening who have big professional goals, whether it's in sales or marketing or coaching or really any industry. What piece of advice would you give them to close?
Be authentic and evolve to get out of your own way.
Amen. What a good theme.
And don't stop.
And don't stop going. What a theme of the show today. Thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. We're like 10 minutes over and I've loved every second of it. This has been awesome. So Shauna, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your energy. Can I encourage anyone to connect with you on LinkedIn and reach out?
Please do, as I gave the example of the guy who reached out to me yesterday, Dalton, I do respond. Please do. I invite you to reach out to me, connect, check out my show, and keep following Jordan and keep encouraging and lifting up and elevating Jordan, because you're incredible and you're making such contribution and impact with what you're doing. And I'm so grateful to be a part of your journey, Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Wow. What a way to end. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll be back next week at the same time. Thank you.